Let's take a look at property bindings in Angular templates. We're talking about properties of some kind of HTML element, whether it's built in or some custom element that we create in Angular. A lot of times we work with attributes when we're working with HTML5, but because Angular has a powerful compiler, it works out a lot better to be working with properties instead. So let's look at this. Here in our template, we have a simple button, and we're specifying disabled as an attribute. So when we show this component, is the button disabled? Yes, we get a grayed out version of the button. So just by having this disabled attribute there, without setting it to any value, that's enough to make the button disabled. But how about this case where we set the button's disabled attribute to false? Is the button disabled? Yes, it is. And this is a common problem when working with attributes. Disabled is a Boolean attribute, and just by using it as an attribute without any value, the button becomes disabled. Setting it to the value false here has no effect. It looks like disabled is false, but in fact, it'll always be disabled. So here's how we get around this in Angular. By using square brackets around disabled, disabled is now being treated as a property of the element button, and we're setting this to false. Is the button disabled now? No, it's not. So the Angular compiler notices these square brackets and treats disabled as a property, whose value will be set to the expression right here, in this case false. If we go ahead and set disabled in square brackets to true, now is the button disabled? Yes, it is. So we can start working with an expression here and assign it to disabled. So setting literal values of true and false isn't that useful. You're more likely to run into this scenario. We're going to bind to the disabled property, and the expression is a variable name. Button is disabled. If we look at the class, we're setting button is disabled equal to false. Is the button disabled? No, it's not. We have access to it. And this is where the power of property binding comes in. We can use expressions, and we can set it on and off as things happen within our code. We wouldn't be able to do that with an attribute, because an attribute gets set once when it's first shown. But with property bindings, things are a lot more dynamic. And some developers don't like that square bracket notation. So in that case, we have this here. We have bind-disabled. Does the binding still work? Yes, the button is enabled. So bind-disabled is an alternative way of using the syntax disabled within the square brackets.